You grab yourself a thin vanilla latte with an extra pump of vanilla, because why not? And you think to yourself, why did I get this drink? Was it because of an ad I saw a couple weeks ago? Maybe it was because of an ad I saw a couple years ago. What if it was because my parents had a sweet tooth and that passed on to me in the form of wanting extra vanilla? What if all my ancestors had a sweet tooth? Given all this information, I now ask you, did you really choose to get that latte? This is getting quite philosophical, and while philosophy is great for a lot of thought experiments like this one, it's not that great for truth. And if we want to approach truth, we'll need science. And likely no fields offer insights into this field better than the topics of emergence, determinism, and the theory of time. The property we've just spiraled out about is determinism. It's cause and effect. If I do this with these properties, no matter how many times I'll do it, I'll get the same result. Obviously, to understand what kind of problem we're tackling, we also have to define free will. Free will, for all intents and purposes, can be known as the ability to act at your own discretion. You can, of course, be influenced by other things, but in general, you're the one making the choices. Lastly, we'll come on to emergence later, but for now, all you need to know is that it's the property of smaller things coming together to make bigger properties and bigger events. Like, for example, how lots of water molecules come together to form the property of wetness. Now, for our first attempt to tackle this monster of a problem, we're going to look at the theory of time. Time is a very complicated thing, and there are three main theories to how it functions. There's nowism, there is eternalism, and there is possibilism. Nowism, quite frankly, is the naive approach. Our current is now, our past was our now, and our future is a now to come. But there's a fundamental problem with this, and we can uncover that by looking at a thought experiment. Imagine you and a friend are overseeing a copy of the Earth develop. You decide to stand there and take it all in, while your over-energetic friend decides to run around at 400 kilometers per second. Don't ask how. When you see the iPhone 13 being released, your friend will have only begun to see the pyramids of Giza being built, according to Einstein's theory of relativity. But if that's true, aren't there two equally valid nows, yours and your friend's, happening at the same time? How can this be with the theory of nowism? It can't, which is why we move on to the other two theories. If nowism was like a single page of a flipbook, if nowism was a single page of a flipbook, then eternalism would be all of those pages stacked together, with the only difference being from human to human how fast we progress through it based on factors like our speed. Now, if every page has already been drawn, if every future has already been shown, doesn't this mean that we can just predict how the future will go? Doesn't this mean that we just have a predetermined fate? Well, for this theory, yeah. But luckily, there is some hope and a counter theory, possibilism. Instead of having all the pages stacked together, or just one single page, you have a growing model. You have bumps and dents at the top showing decisions being made and forming the future. With this model, we're able to freely choose how we live. One interesting piece of evidence towards this is how altitude affects time dilation. That's right, your feet are moving through time slower than your head. In fact, this even extends towards space. So, no matter what all those magazines say, you should know that the true way to stop aging is to not be an astronaut. Now, it appears that we're at a bit of an impasse here. There's not much more evidence we can really show for either side, and it's difficult to prove how time progresses, considering that we're prisoners of it. So let's take a look at a more definitive and, more importantly, a more scientific approach. We are humans. Humans are made of cells, cells from atoms, and atoms from quarks. Now, imagine each one of those tiny quarks as a ball on a cosmological pool table. Now, each of these balls follow a set of mostly deterministic rules, which means that if I do this thing with these properties, I'll get the same result, as we said before. But if that's true, could we not feed each one of these quarks into a supercomputer and all of their properties, and then could we not figure out how the future continues just based off those? If that was true, would our future not be determined already? Well, that is if that were true. Luckily, there are some rules that aren't deterministic, and that occurs due to quantum mechanics. There's so much innate randomness happening everywhere in the world due to quantum mechanics. But the only problem is that it doesn't necessarily mean that you're still making the choices. It could just randomly be happening in the moment. You still have no free will. But there is another counter-argument to this: emergence. You can't explain free will by just looking at the fundamental particles of the universe. You can't explain the works of Shakespeare and the societal impact it has just by understanding how letters work. There's an interesting thought experiment about this to do with light. Namely, a woman was born and she has IQ tests off the charts on all possible scales. And she's been put in a black and white room for her entire life. One day, her monitor glitches, and she finally sees an image full of color. Despite knowing everything humankind knows about color before, does she learn anything new by just perceiving color? Is there something more than just understanding wavelengths, and that this wavelength makes this color, and that wavelength makes that color, to truly understand it? And similarly, do we need something more than just quantum particles to understand free will? To be quite frank, we don't really know if we have free will. It's a heavily debated topic across millions of scientists and speculators across the world. But in the grand scheme of things, and at the end of the day, it might just be better to believe that you chose to get that latte. Thank you.